HDR10 Technologies has launched Eclipse audio certification program to advance immersive sound. And what is needed here for this to become viable?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions too. I don't know the answers to all of it. To me, this is adding a complication to something that I didn't think needed to be complicated further.
My ridiculously circuitous plan is 1/4 complete.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk CEDIA's ISE trainings, 29 cyber attacks a day, and Eclipse audio. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 507, Expensive Licensing. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt E. Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, we're pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. He's the editor-in-chief at ProjectorCentral. How are you, sir?
Doing well, Matt. Great to see you again. And I'm looking forward to talking about cybersecurity today.
I know you are. You're thrilled. Then we have Arlen Schweiger. He's the director of content at Rise Media Strategy. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me again and reuniting me with Jeremy here. This is great.
We may as well judge some products or something together, like while we're here.
Exactly. It's like we're on a work trip together, a junket.
Oh, we can be very judgy. Starting with the things that we're going to judge. This comes to us from Residential Systems. CEDIA unveils their conference program for ISE 2026. It features 36 sessions that are spanning across 3 days across 6 tracks. Go read through it. The highlights include CEDIA standards, AI and emerging technologies, lighting and wellness, network cybersecurity and privacy, home cinema and immersive audio, and business. There's some popular sessions that are coming back from guys like Rich Green and Peter Aylett, etc. Jeremy, let me start with you on this. Is the training track at ISE seemingly carrying more weight than it does at CEDIA? Because it seems that the Europeans are a little bit more open, less cynical.
I believe so. I mean, I think that's been the case for a while. I don't know what it is maybe it's because things started in the US with CEDIA and it's gotten to the point where it's evolved to be, folks are frustrated that it's not what it used to be. It doesn't provide the value that they think it should. I don't know what the story is with the U.S. with education for CEDIA, but I always feel like there's less pushback, and maybe I'm just not seeing the trolls out there commenting on it from the European side, but it always seems like they're a little more open-minded. They came to it later. They want to learn. And some of the folks that have been doing it a while, like Rich Green, I feel like that's a rinse and repeat kind of session. Like he's been doing this forever. I guess he brings new stuff. He's talking AI now. So it's definitely changed from the years of what Silicon Valley is up to. But Peter Aylett's great. He's highly technical. He's been involved in a lot of the standards development there for home theater and audio, surround multi, but what's the word I'm trying to come up with? I'm trying to think of the last big paper that he was involved in. But he's very involved in their standards committees and all of that. So, of course, you go lighting, and not everyone's in the lighting space yet, but it's still one of those categories that there's a lot of need to learn about it. And it's not that you come in with all this back experience with audio, for instance, as a category that's been around forever. We all seem to all know about it. So new technologies, new categories, you need to sit down and actually learn about. Lighting, networking, still always challenging. We'll touch on that later with another article. But I do feel like this is a pretty robust offering. And I feel like that market, that area of the world is more receptive to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Arlen, education at Expo got a fairly good report this year. This is obviously looking very exciting and interesting for the ISE offerings. Has CEDIA's training offerings kind of turn the corner from where they were a couple of years ago, with even if it's just the perception?
For ISE, I mean, you have to talk about, I think, also the sheer amount of people that go there. You know, they're going to speak to a much broader crowd, a much larger crowd. I think there are more opportunities for those classes to be filling up. And I think kind of what Jeremy was saying, it's almost like over here, it's almost that some of the integrators, I feel, are jaded at this point with some of this. And that might just not be the case over on the EMEA side. They could have some younger integrators who might be just getting into the space. But also it's that technology, I think, that has maturing on a faster level here, where the Europeans might be starting to catch up. They have different kinds of architecture in their houses to deal with. So like human-centric lighting that's being taught this year, you know, we've been talking about that for 5-6 years now on the American side. And that could be something where, you know, whether or not the lighting fixture companies didn't have as much of an impact in Europe, maybe they're having a more impact these days, or the actual, you know, the manufacturers, the control manufacturers are figuring things more out for their integrators over there. But it looked like the broad content was really good. And, you know, I think part of it is that maturing education over here is now working over to that side. And, you know, I just think they have a seemingly greater audience to cater to over there.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics to Jeremy's favorite. This comes to us from CE Pro. A report says the average smart home faces 29 cybersecurity attacks daily, and integrators are on the front lines. The average connected household has 22 IoT devices, and they are under a constant cyber attack, facing nearly 30 attacks every 24 hours, according to a new report from NETGEAR and Bitdefender. One of the things in this article that is surprising, so again, go read through it, is that some of the streaming devices, particularly running outdated Linux or Android, are prime targets for exploitation. Arlen, when you go and look through this and read through the article and see what's being attacked and what's, you know, going down essentially in our smart homes, are we as integrators doing enough? And I primarily want to focus on some of those streaming boxes, because I know how many cord cutters, quote unquote, who are paying $10 a month for unlimited TV on these devices that are likely getting hacked. Are we as integrators doing enough?
Well, that depends. I'm not sure exactly how much, you know, each one is doing, but I think at the very least, you know, there should be some overview with it, because when integrators start talking about home controls and using phones, I think their clients tend to understand there's some sort of inherent risk. You know, but that's something that I was kind of surprised to read going through the article as well, with all the streaming devices. And, you know, but I think it is one of those things where they should at least acknowledge, hey, you're going to have lots of firmware updates with these kind of devices. With firmware updates, depending on the connection, you're going to have probably some vulnerabilities. Now, again, that goes to something else, which is, you know, what can integrators be doing on the cybersecurity in general? You know, and that might depend, okay, whether you're doing access networks versus, I mean, NETGEAR is the one that did this article, but, you know, it could be dependent on what company's products you're installing as well. You know, someone who's, like I said, installing more enterprise grade products might think to themselves like, hey, I don't really need to explain this to them, because it's something that the software, the firewalls and all that in access networks is going to catch it. You know, if I've got Y reboot, they're going to catch it. But I think at the very least, they do need to acknowledge that, hey, yeah, this is going to be, you're going to have firmware updates up the kazoo with these things, and you never know what could happen. But we're going to be doing our best to at least make sure that the products we install fight against these kind of things.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jeremy, when you see this, specifically the last segment of the article, which is talking about what integrators can do now, as far as a security first approach that's beyond the basics of default settings or manufacturer promises, they say something that I don't often see in these articles, which got me excited, and use the phrase of, to protect clients and mitigate liability, they should do the following. And then they listed a couple of things that people should look at. Unless you're in the middle of the installation phase, if this is a existing client or a takeover, what is there anything that we can do as integrators without opening ourselves up to liability? Do we want to, like, once you set it up, do you want to come back? Do you want to touch that again?
Well, I think the good integrators do come back. And I think it's up to the integrator themselves, whether they want to be, as a service contract kind of situation or, ongoing client relationship. And if they're good at their jobs, they want to come back. They want to update systems and upgrade products that are in the system. And maybe part of that is saying to the client, don't click yes on any of the firmware updates. Let us do that. It can only cause, harm, but we will do that on a scheduled basis. We'll come in and make sure that everything that we've installed is updated where it should be. Do the audit when you are working with the client, whether it's, stuff that they bought themselves that they want to include in the new system that's being installed, or you're coming back in and retrofitting some things and they've got other IoT devices in the home that aren't ones that you sell. Knowing which ones are most susceptible to vulnerability. Maybe they've got a IoT camera that they bought for their garage that works with their door opener that you're just like, this is not something that I would endorse. I would like to convince you to replace it with a product that I, am more familiar with, that I, work with. You do get into that territory that you've mentioned on other conversations I've had with you, which is adding yourself into that liability equation. When you say, yes, this home is clean, this home is secure, I guarantee it, and sign off on it. If they do get hacked, especially high net worth people that we deal with in this industry, you're the one that they're going to come after. You're causing more harm to your company or potential harm by putting yourself out on the line like that. So I think being an advocate for the client is an important part here, doing your best to do it, but also limiting your liability and not having yourself in any situation like, say, I'm guaranteeing the security of your system. That's a delicate dance. I don't have a great answer for how best to accomplish that, but I do think that you try to reduce and educate. You reduce the vulnerability and educate the client. I go back to this every time. It's like you still hear so many of these situations happening by someone clicking on the wrong thing. The phishing scams and all that. Where this gets kind of scary is when you talk about this bad box 2.0 situation, botnet threat, where it's coming in on the device itself that you've purchased, and you're just basically, you don't even have to, I don't think, do anything to have it start happening.
Yep.
You're not even making an error as a client or end user. It literally is just an opening for people to come look at your house and watch your cameras and stuff like that. So that's a scary one. It's not as easy, but it'd be great to have a list of all those products that have that, and then say, we're not installing any of these. Keep it that simple.
Let me ask you guys this, and there are some. There's a known exploited vulnerability catalog from the U.S. Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency. There's a couple Canadian ones. There's a couple European ones, but again, they're only as up to date as they can be. Let me ask you guys this. I keep hearing something that both of you said, and I've heard it from countless other people's in the channel. let the integrators do the security updates and the firmware updates, or don't do the firmware updates because it'll break the integration. What comes with the firmware update is the software patch to patch the hole. What is the balance of not updating the TV's firmware because it could break the remote control integration versus patching the TV to fix the exploit? Or is that where you've got to have those firmware, or I'm sorry, you got to have those monitoring contracts in place to allow the integrator to actually keep it on top of that?
I think that's definitely the service opportunity, if you're going to touch that. But it's a tricky subject because there are a lot of traditional security integrators that don't want to touch cybersecurity for just the things that we've been talking about. So, I think what Jeremy said is probably the maybe best way to tread lightly on that. But again, I think if you're an integrator, maybe these days it's one of those things where you might even be better off finding a good IT partner and maybe try and cover it that way. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a tough one. All right, gentlemen, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today. HDR10 Technologies has launched Eclipsa audio certification program to advance immersive sound. This is Eclipsa Audio by Samsung and Google in the graphic there. But they're the organization behind HDR10 dynamic metadata, and they've announced this new audio certification program, which is bringing open source and a standards-based approach to immersive audio. Go read through this, especially if you haven't heard of Eclipsa before. They're trying to get away from the proprietary audio formats that we know as or know of as Dolby Atmos, Dolby Digital, et cetera, which require licensing and licensing mainly, start to finish, from production to content delivery. So they're trying to get past this and bring an open source audio experience to all of us. They're working on ensuring interoperability between TVs and soundbars and other connected devices. The first certified televisions are expected to launch soon, with additional device categories to follow. Jeremy, let me start with you on this. I think this was new to all of us. What is needed here for this to become viable? Is this something that needs to be essentially embedded on every TV that's available at Best Buy or Costco or Walmart or from your favorite distributor? Does this need to be in every Sonos soundbar or every et cetera? Or can they kind of dip their toes into this?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions too. I don't know the answers to all of it. Unfortunately, it just, to me, this is adding a complication to something that I didn't think needed to be complicated further. I think that folks are kind of understanding what Dolby and Dolby Atmos are. I can't speak to all consumers. Some consumers have no idea what any of it is, obviously. But those who are in AV into it are familiar with that. And surround sound, basic surround sound. People know what that is. You're adding a complication to why would I need this thing? The other stuff seems to work, right? Is it this barrier to entry thing? How expensive is a license? We don't really ever hear about that being a problem. How expensive it is.
The number one thing I hear complaints in our industry about is the cost of Dolby licensing.
Not at all. Not at all. Like, it never has come up. Many years of being in this industry, that's never come up. But we're also in a premium category, so who knows? Maybe there is just so much more opportunity out there for bottom feeder kind of products, like the low end, where they just want to keep the cost down, but the performance improve, the audio performance, the integration to improve between these devices. But it seems like it would have to be on the content side as well. That's the part I'm not sure about. Yeah. That the streamers would have to be sending this signal to the device that's receiving it to be able to then process, multi-channel into the room, create a surround sort of, situation. There's all different levels of this in the industry. I mean, I obviously work with the projector industry now, and lifestyle projectors, they run the gamut from like a $200 little lifestyle projector that you can't believe it's a projector. It looks just like almost like an Alexa device or something. But they're trying to appeal to younger and younger demographics, and they still want the audio to sound good, because if you can't watch a movie and hear it at the same time in a good way, then what's the point? And so maybe something like this on a lower cost product presents that opportunity to, create almost a surround sound-esque experience, without having to go the whole Dolby Atmos route. So that's all I can figure on this. Otherwise, it seems like it's a lot of steps to get it to work together the way it's supposed to be and to simplify this. So maybe we're just at the infancy, and eventually it's like going to be ubiquitous in everything we see. And we're going to think, oh, well, that wasn't so hard. They all were on board. But right now it seems complicated to me.
That's a good point. Arlen, when you see this, one of the things that kind of hit me was, and I'm going to quote it, that they aim to standardize and elevate spatial sound performance across television soundbars and future generation devices. Jeremy mentioned the source. My understanding from a production standpoint is that you have to encode that into that format, whatever format you want it to be. And I've worked in production of content beyond like what we're doing today, where we've built stereo channels. We've built 5.1, 7.1. I've not done Atmos, but I've seen Atmos mixed. It's an entire source track, right? If they don't have the source bringing an Eclipsa codec, how are the TVs going to do anything with that? Or, like, is this just pulling stereo and then turning it into 5-channel stereo? Like, what are they doing with this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to ask, Matt, because we don't have too many of the details on this yet. But you're right. To have great content that can actually take advantage of this by the products that are going to be able to license this better because it's open source, it starts with the content, right? So what are the studios and their engineers going to be doing with that in production, in post-production? Because if it's not natively done, if it's not really comprehensively done, there's not going to be much point to it being offered, or to a soundbar maker to say, hey, let's be sure to include this. Why would they want to add in one more thing to complicate their pricing, or however long, to market it might take to put out a new product or to update it with this kind of thing, if it's not going to be able to fully take advantage of, an improvement in audio. And again, I think like we were talking earlier, you already get these experiences from Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, RO3D. Like, here's another format that's coming along, and how are the studios going to get involved in this, and why do they want to get involved in this? Like, we don't have, Avengers movies coming out with as great audio as it is right now. I don't know. It kind of strikes me as something that I don't plan on seeing how we're going to hear all that much about this going forward. I could be wrong. But to me, it kind of seems like something where, unless it's really promoted, and really shown by, even reviewers who are out there, if they're first products that come out there, they're going to need to be a lot of beta testing, a lot of early adopters to get this. And I feel like by the time all that comes out, we might be onto some other audio format at that point. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. I pulled some additional as we were talking about this. They are capable of simulating surround sounds originating from various directions, distances, and heights. It can support up to 28 audio elements and channels in a single bit stream, and it can use codecs such as Opus, ACC, FLAC, or PCM to handle both channel-based audio and scenic-based audio. I really want to play with this now, just to see if it actually does it. And then it gave me a bunch of information on how to actually set it up in your DAW for Pro Tools or something like that to create your object base. But it's very interesting to watch. Do either of you think that this is going to maybe not eclipse Atmos, but does it have the potential to kind of be side by side?
I think the one part of this that we haven't mentioned is the whole idea of the HDR plus connection, and that they do know how to make these licensing partnerships happen. So that part, they probably feel like they've got figured out. Now we're just doing the next part of the equation, which is the audio, and we'll just go back to the same people we talked to before, and that'll happen. I think it probably could be side by side just to make it an option for someone, but I still feel like this is kind of appealing to a certain level of product that just that expensive Dolby license that we talked about isn't a good value, for them to make the price of the product the right price. So maybe we're missing out on something. We just didn't know that it definitely adds cost that they could spend on other stuff or lower the price for the consumer. Who knows? Like that's something I'd love to know a little bit more about. I'm going to definitely ask the next time I talk to one of these projector companies that has like an Atmos kind of capability, which is rare, but I know they've got partners with manufacturers like Harman and JBL that those brands work with these lifestyle projector companies. So does Bose. You see these brandings on these companies. So there's an emphasis on audio quality out of these small projectors, and they do talk about trying to create a virtual surround scenario. So maybe then in that kind of situation, they would go with this instead of Atmos or we'll call it Dolby. Yeah. But what the bigger ones probably want to have it if it's not going to add a lot of cost, just to be, compatible with all the other things that might be doing it.
It'll be interesting to see if on the creation side, when you go to export, your content, if you can just like check mark it, right? You create your soundstage, you do everything, and then you just like Atmos, Eclipse, and just export it. And if it doesn't look like it's that simple yet, but if they can get there, then that would be the best way to do it. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Thank you both so much for joining us. Arlen, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Rise Media Strategy, where can they do that?
Sure. They can go to the website, risemediastrategy.com. They can email me at my first name, Arlen, at risemediastrategy.com, or hit me up at LinkedIn at Arlen Schweiger.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Jeremy, my friend, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Projector Central or watch your podcast, where can they do that?
Check out our website, ProjectorCentral.com, and you can find me via email with the email address Jeremy@ProjectorCentral.com, or look for me on LinkedIn as well. I communicate with a lot of folks in the industry there. But thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for being here. Thanks again to you as well for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on most of the socials. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hey listeners, it's your AV sneakerhead, Jennifer Weaver. Listen to AV Career Masterminds, where I chat all things job-related in the audio-visual industry. You can find AV Career Masterminds where you subscribe to podcasts.